afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown School Board meeting. I am calling this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. If you could all rise and say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right,
Janelle is on.
Oh, Janelle's on too. Great.
All right, so before we start the meeting, I do want to acknowledge we have 2 school board members that were not able to make it, and they are calling in. When I call your name, just say if you're here and alone. I have Jarrett Talbot.
Turn alone.
And Janelle O'Brien.
Here and alone.
All right, thank you, guys. All right, correspondence.
None this evening.
All right, accommodations, good news. Amanda?
I don't have a ton. We're just coming back from vacation, so it was nice to be back in the building today. Nice to see everyone, students and staff, all happy to be back together. Tomorrow we have a teacher workshop day, so we are gearing up to learn all about Schoology. It's going to be a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Go ahead, Jenny.
I went to SpongeBob and the musical, and I am not a fan of SpongeBob. As a matter of fact, I don't let my kids watch SpongeBob, but it was amazing. It was so much fun, and the audience got into the show, and the people on the stage reacted. We had a blast. It was went to the Saturday night performance, and it was a phenomenal show. They just did a really good job for SpongeBob. I mean, whoever knew.
We have an incredibly talented performing arts department.
Honestly, it was
It
so much
starts with
fun.
Mrs. McCann's leadership, and it's
Yes.
the wonderful teachers and everybody who's involved. Great kids, great supportive families.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And also, I've watched multiple basketball games, both girls and boys, and amazing basketball was played.
Just really lousy commentary, though, don't you think?
Yeah.
Great game.
You know, I really thought some of the
Poor Scott.
some of the commentary. Only kidding.
I do hear the negatives, Brian, trust me.
I'm kidding, Mr. Gross.
Others aren't.
Really well-played basketball. I was amazed at the, and of course, we didn't go to the game. We were watching it on NHIA, and in the championship game, it froze at 2 minutes left in the game. And we're like, are you kidding me? It's going back and forth, and at 2 minutes it froze. But it did come back, so we
you got to see the end.
To see the end, thank goodness.
That's good.
But I really, some excellent basketball, both with the boys and the girls. Fun to watch.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Anyone else? Accommodations? Go ahead.
Just to follow up with the musical, I also went, and I also don't like SpongeBob, but I have a new appreciation. But I do want to just mention that, you know, we do have such a great program here at the high school, but we also have a great program at middle school. And with so many things that starts in maybe even elementary,
Yes.
it starts in the middle school, so it feeds up the talent. So
Right,
I just wanted to
absolutely.
acknowledge that.
Which is great, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other, it's kind of bittersweet commendation, but many of you know I hosted our family hosted an exchange student from Ukraine.
Yes.
She graduated from Goffstown High School in 2019, I believe. Anyways, her mom, she was studying in Kyiv. Her mom made her come home. She lives in Crimea, which has been annexed by Russians, so she's okay. I just wanted to share that a lot of students and families have been reaching out to see if she's okay.
Good.
Thank goodness for Instagram, so I'm in touch with her almost every day.
Oh, good.
She's okay.
Oh, good.
That's awesome. Thank you, Retta. Hi, Caleb. On the accommodation good news, do you have anything? I know you just got back from break, but do you have
I
anything?
do actually.
Nothing?
I do.
Oh, you do? Perfect.
So first of all, a little known fact about the high school is that we do have a robotics team here, and for about the past year and a half, due to regulations of the people that fund the team. They've been unable to compete until actually this past weekend, where they went down to Salem. And for having such a small team this year, and I mean, I think there's 14 students on roster, probably 7 who show up regularly, and a small group of really dedicated mentors who put in, I mean, tens of hours of time over the course of 12 weeks to really, teach these students. And I just want to share that they were actually able to compete for the first time in a while. Additionally, I'd like to commend Miss Sylvia. As you know, she now works in the Grizzly Den after having moved from guidance. And I think just she does some really amazing work with, I think, some of the most academically at-risk students at the high school. And just the amount of time and personal energy she puts into helping those kids, I think it really needs to be recognized from time to time.
Awesome, thank you,
Well said.
Caleb. All right, and I have a commendation, good news. James Fox is an 8th grade student and the winner of the Mountain View Middle School Spelling Bee, was one of only 15 finalists in the state to qualify for the state spelling bee. Last Saturday, James finished 4th in the state, and we are incredibly proud of James and his accomplishments.
Wow.
So, wanted to mention that. Does anybody else have anything? No? All right, so moving on to public comment. We do not have public comment tonight, so I'll move on to approving the February 21st school board minutes. That's also with the retreat, so you'll see 2 packets in your pile, so we can do the retreat first, and
I'll
then
move to approve the minutes of the retreat.
Okay, by Ellen, do I have a second? By Shane? Any discussion, anybody see anything? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle? Janelle?
She's still on, Scott?
I'm going to check. Yes.
Oh, there you are. All right, Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. All right, so now we have the actual board meeting on the 24th. Do you have a motion for
Move
that
to
one?
approve the minutes.
By Ellen, second by Shane. Any discussion, anything anyone saw? All right, seeing none, I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. All right, so we're going on to committee reports. Scott?
I have the pleasure of delegating this to board member Daniel J. Cloutier,
Yes.
who's
Thank
going
you,
to
Scott.
present the manifest.
He's back.
Like we used to do, kind of. So the first thing I'd like to do is make a motion that we approve a manifest in the amount of $1,656,399.79.
All right, do I have a second? By Ellen? Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Some of the highlighted items, it's a very, very small manifest. It's $1.5 million of the 1.6 just in payroll and health trust and taxes and things. We have 2 sped payments for contracted services totaling $11,426, and 2 general expenses, one to Dead River and one to Eversource, and propane was $23,431, electricity about $7,800. Food service, $21,666. Those are the highlights.
All right, thank you, Dan. Anybody have any questions? All right, so seeing none, I'll do roll call. Greta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. All right, Scott, more?
Yeah,
Bless you.
I'd like to periodically just provide to the board and just give a brief discussion about your expenditure and revenue reports. So on the revenue side, everything is tracking as expected in terms of what our projections are. As you know, the vast majority of the revenue that we get is from our local taxation as well as state adequacy aid. And in terms of other grants, IDA, those are all, again, tracking normally. One area that's not trending well is our Medicaid reimbursement, and that's something that's across the state. They've changed a lot of the guidelines, and I've talked to you about this before. Luckily for us, when I over the last couple of years, I've budgeted that very, very low. So in the past, we would get about $300,000 in Medicaid reimbursements. The last couple of years, I've only budgeted a revenue of $50,000, and I don't know if we'll even hit that. So there have been.
It wasn't that many years ago that we were getting around 300,000.
That's what I'm saying, 300, yeah.
So 300 grand, not too many years ago.
So,
down to 50.
So, just so you know, on that, in terms of on the revenue side, on the expenditure side, and I've talked about this, for this entire year, we have had unfilled positions, namely in paraprofessional ranks, some of our teacher ranks as well. So we will see some lower than expected expenditures in those areas. We know that in student transportation, I'm working with the transportation company to get what we think will be the credit through the end of the year. My guess is that it's going to be in excess of $275,000, but we'll get that number probably in another month or so. The other area that I have a little bit of a concern with, it's not a major thing, and that's in propane. As you know, part of our strategy was to keep windows open, to have air ventilation, while it costs to heat the building. So, and this building in particular, we've gone through more propane than we have in prior years. The other thing is that between last year and this year, because our usage was higher, we had a great rate of $1.16 per gallon, but that was capped at a certain number of gallons, and we've exceeded that. So I entered into another agreement at, I think, $1.70 and change, which is way better than what it is now. So we're probably going to be about $50,000 over what we thought our budgeted propane amount is, but we have other areas we'll be able to deal with that. And then other than that, we're still trending in the direction of where I think our budget, will land in terms of an underspend of the budget. And Laura Taylor and myself have been looking at that, because I need to hit a target for what we projected for the tax rate, and that's what I hope to do. And Laura and I will be working on that over the next couple of months. So. Other than that, everything else is trending pretty well. I will be speaking with Randy and Steve Bourget. We have had a couple of projects. To give you an example, as you know, our Milestone, our server, which has had issues with our security system, and that is something that we had to do an immediate replacement on. Won't come in for another 4 weeks or so we're kind of patching that as we go. And then we run into things that we didn't budget for, but just happened. So one of our inspections at Mountain View Middle School for our hilltop, the basketball winches, those needs a lot of repairs, and that's like $8,000 or $9,000. So those are the things I just, I'm sure board members, you understand, you can only budget for certain things, and these things, kind of pop up. So there is a degree of fluidity to the finances to a degree, but those are more of the bigger things that I've seen over the last, 3 to 4 weeks that I wanted to keep you apprised of.
I know Ellen had her hand up, and then Dan. Go ahead, Ellen.
What are you looking at potentially as underspent funds about?
In terms of a number?
Yeah, any,
I'm
100,000, 300,000?
Oh, no. Underspend of the budget?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close to like 1.3 to 1.5 million.
And Ellen, it's also the overcollection of revenue.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, I was breaking that out.
Yeah.
That included?
Yeah, my target is no, it does not include. I think my target is about $2.5 million.
$2.5 million with unanticipated
Yes,
revenue.
yes.
So 1.3 to 1.5 is
Yeah.
underspend?
Right.
And then the balance would bring us up to about 2.5?
Yeah.
And that's
There might be
what,
more.
that's what we need to hit the tax rate projections that Mr. Gross had done during the budget
Okay.
process.
Right.
So that, we assumed that underspend of the general fund and the overcollection of revenue to get to those tax rates.
And does that include the monies we anticipate getting back from the bus?
That does.
Okay,
Yep.
that includes that. Can I ask a question about the bus? Because
Let Dan
Okay,
first,
go ahead.
and then I'll come back to you. Go ahead, Dan.
So Scott, can you remind us whether it's the Medicaid reimbursement money that we had formerly paid a vendor to help go
Yes.
through expenses?
Yes.
And how
we-
have they done? Not so well?
Not
or-
so well because the rules changed. And the
Oh,
rules
great.
changed in fairness to the vendor, and it's, there are a few vendors out there, and Jen, our special ed director, Jennifer Doloff, has looked at other vendors. But they changed the rules in which now you need a medical professional to render a diagnosis, and whereas before, we were able to say this child received these types of services which were Medicaid eligible. Now, a doctor or an
RPN.
physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, I think, can also sign off on some of those things, but it's become much more stringent in terms of what is needed.
And this is a federal program.
Federal,
So
right.
this is a federal program that has been around for decades. We have been collecting Medicaid to school money for a generation or more, and it's unfortunate that some of the red tape has occurred at the state level, which has created barriers for us to be able to collect that revenue. So it hurts local taxpayers.
The only other question I had is on the revenue, the adequacy aid. Can you confirm it's based on our average attendance, which includes the New Boston as well as the Goffstown citizens for this
So
money we get, or?
it's Goffstown, it's Goffstown kids, and it's not just your attendance. That's the base part of the adequacy formula is the attendance. It's called your average daily membership. But then they also have other variables. Those other variables are the number of kids who might not be reading on grade level. Another
In
one
third
might be
grade.
free and reduced lunch.
Third grade reading.
Right, third grade reading. Children who have special needs. So there are other subcategories in which you would get more than the base. And don't quote me on it, but the number is somewhere around $3,850 is the base adequacy. And then you get additional monies if a student is identified as a free and reduced lunch student, or has special needs, or is a student that is reading below third grade level. And then it could go as high as over $7,000 per student.
But that would only be if a student
Had
got
every
each one of
single
those
one of them.
buckets,
Right.
which
They were in
very
every
few
bucket,
of
which is
them
very
are.
uncommon.
Which is good. It's a credit, we don't want them in those buckets.
Right.
So, but if they do, so what I'm thinking about is we have an expense to do what we need to do, that we have income to try to offset. And it's based on the formula that New Boston would reimburse us in the tuition from other LEAs, where they get the adequacy funds, and then it comes to us kind of roundabout.
Yes.
Through the tuition.
Through the tuition.
Reimbursement.
Right.
Okay.
So they're still getting that same $3,850, right, for a high
Yep.
school kid, although we're charging them
The full rate.
the full
Right.
rate.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're all set, Dan?
I'm all set, thank you very much.
All right, anyone else have a question for Scott? Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Nobody else? I have two related to bus out. The quick one was, what's the status of the GPS idea on our buses?
They're working on it.
They're still working
Yep.
on it, okay.
And we don't anticipate any action of being able to implement a program until likely next year.
Oh, okay.
So this is not something that we're going to be able to flip a switch tomorrow.
Okay,
But
that's good.
this is something, kind of the end game is, we've been talking about this for a while, and it looks like we're going to be able to expedite it for next school year.
I want to, because I know people are watching and they've been
Yeah,
asking, so.
and believe me, I would much rather people can go on an app and find out where is bus 14
Right.
instead of the superintendent sending out a message at 5:30 every
Right,
morning. That would
right.
be highly desirable.
And my next question, I think, is, people are going to say, Ellen, are you crazy? But I'm going to ask it because if others don't, people need to hear why the answer is the way it's going to be, I'm pretty sure. We have gone this year doing extraordinary things, trying to get all our kids to school with less than the number of buses we have contracted for, the 22. We don't have enough bus drivers or whatever, okay? And thank you, parents, for all of you who are able to drive your kids to
Agreed.
school. But, I mean, thank you very much. The question comes in then, and don't misunderstand me, people, if we did it this year with fewer buses, why can't we continue that? Don't yell at me.
Oh, don't, it's okay, I can answer that question.
I know.
So there are a couple of different factors. One is the length of time that we want our students on the bus, that's one. And the second one is that we are looking at this. So it's a question that I know Brian and I raised to the bus company, and they're looking at, they have software there, and I didn't get a chance to talk to the superintendent about it, but I did speak to the bus company about 5 o'clock this afternoon, is that they're looking at different routes. So, and there is the potential of being able to have fewer than 22 routes. So there could be a good thing that comes of this. Whether that number is 20, whether it's 21, 18, 19, I don't know. My guess is it's going to be not as, I don't think it's going to be, it might be as low as 18. It's not going to go lower than that. But I think it will be lower than 22 when we look at it. And it also depends upon, our bus scheduling has typically been based upon the number of eligible students within a route, not the number who actually take the bus per se. It's because there are some days where kids get driven to school and other days where they take the bus, and we have to plan on all kids who are eligible on the route to take the bus. And what we see is that when it's, during certain times where it's beautiful and it's a sunny day, get on the bus stop, jump on the bus. If it's a rainy, don't get soaking wet, I'll drive you to school. So you see some of those things, but I do think at the end, we're gonna see routes that are gonna be reconfigured, which we may come back, and it might not be next budget cycle, but the one after that, to say, okay, we think we can do this with less bus routes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
It would be my preference, though, to have the routes and to have shorter bus runs. Because right now, I think it has been an incredible inconvenience to families. I think the transportation for many of our bus routes has been very unreliable. So parents have made incredible sacrifices to get their kids to school, to carpool, and I think it's really, it's unfair to
And
parents.
some kids currently are on the bus for over 50 minutes.
Oh, and
more than
Twice a
even
day.
longer. So the
Yeah.
high school, the first bell at the high
It's
school is 7:41. We've got kids getting picked up at 6:15. 6:15.
That's awful.
Yeah.
And
It's-
granted, some of those are New Boston runs, but
Still.
it's crazy.
And the other thing we
We
can't
need to do
forget,
better.
Alan, is we can't forget that there's a lot of car traffic. So the more kids on buses, people complain about the traffic, and, the more kids that go on the bus, the less vehicles there are on the road, and hopefully then it eases. So it's a double-edged sword to some degree.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of families have made personal sacrifices,
Yes.
and I think that next year they're going to be really happy to put their kids back on the school bus, and I'm going to encourage them.
Yeah.
Put your kids back on the school bus. Put them on now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I felt like I needed to ask that
Yeah,
because,
it's a good question.
Thank
when
you,
you go
Alan.
into the situations we've had, sometimes things come up that you can make those adjustments.
Right, absolutely.
If something appears, and it sounds like that's what could be coming out the end of it. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Scott, are you set, or you have more?
Yeah, I have one more thing. This
Yep.
is just, STA is our bus company, and that tragedy that happened in Bradford, that was an STA school bus. And 2 people were significantly injured in that accident. And I know that I sent a note off to the folks that we deal with over there, and they know these people personally. So I wanted to just extend my concern and prayers for those 2 folks. And hopefully, they recover quickly. They're both in Boston right now. So again, it's they're our vendor, but it's still.
Still.
Oh, there are neighbors and
There are neighbors
community
and people who we
members
work
and
with, yeah, so-
colleagues.
So you're all set?
That's it, yeah.
All right. So Budget Committee, Jared?
Get off mute here.
Okay.
The Budget Committee is not going to be meeting until after the elections, and at that point, Heather, I think that the school board will come together and find out who will be our representative to the Budget Committee. So I
Okay.
think our Budget Committee is done for the year until they have their assembly to pick their new chair.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jared. All right, PNC. Retta.
PNC did meet this evening. We had a short agenda. We talked a little bit about the school district and the board mission and vision and guiding principles. You have a draft copy in your packet. There are a few changes that we're going to make. They're mostly a couple of words, so not major changes. But what we would like to propose is that we bring this back. We're not going to discuss it tonight. I think it would be helpful for you to all look at it. We'll come back to in April, and we'll talk about it. If we want to make significant revisions, we can bring it back at the retreat in June. Otherwise, if you feel like it's in a good place, we can also consider just approving it at that point. So that's where we're at with the vision and mission. We also continued the conversation about teacher appreciation that we started at the retreat, and just starting to make preliminary plans. That's not until the first week of May, so we've got some time. And that's it. So we'll plan on meeting in, I don't think we need to meet in April unless there's something else that comes up, so.
Do you need to meet in April to plan May? Teacher appreciation
Yes,
stuff?
yes, that's
Okay.
probably a good idea.
So you'll have a date later?
It's usually the first Monday.
Okay, I think that's April 7th or something. Okay, perfect. All right, thanks, Retta. All right, policy review. We have a meeting March 28th at 5:30 at the SAU. C&E?
We've not met, and we do have a meeting coming up on the 28th of March, 7 p.m. at the SAU.
All right. Facilities Planning Committee. Jared?
We have not met since the last school board meeting. I do plan on having a meeting in the March timeframe. Hopefully we can present the recommendations from the planning committee sometime in the April timeframe. But that's a very loose schedule that I'm looking at, and hopefully we can start wrapping this up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jared. All right, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to start with hoping everyone had a great vacation. I know that it was a much-needed break for all of our teachers, our kids, our families. You know, when I was reflecting on this, the stretch of time from Christmas until February vacation last week was probably the hardest stretch any of us have ever lived through. So it was much needed, and I hope everyone had a great vacation off. Spring athletics will be starting shortly at the middle school and here at the high school, and I'd like to offer my appreciation to winter coaches and advisors. It was a hard season to be a coach during COVID and the spike of Omicron. We kept everything going with only minor interruptions, so I'd like to thank all of them. The elections are all set for tomorrow. I was down speaking to Mr. Parker and his team. They look like they've got the gym all set up here. I'm assuming they're all set up over at Bartlett as well. So I would encourage people to be informed and to participate. And tomorrow, as Mrs. Nix had mentioned, we will have a large focus tomorrow on the implementation of Schoology. And I'm very excited to be rolling out that learning management system. I mentioned this to the board at your retreat, but I wanted to mention again that we are working on a pooled Homeland Security phishing test that we have to do in order to be compliant with the New Hampshire RSA. So we will be looking at how many people click on things they shouldn't. It's not who, we're not tracking names, we're just looking at numbers to make sure that people get the message, don't click on links you shouldn't, don't give personal information that you shouldn't, etc. We already talked about busing after Mrs. Vermakowitz asked some questions. I think we continue to make some good progress on busing. We've only had a couple of runs that have been slightly delayed, but kids still getting to school on time. I had mentioned that our quarantine teacher that we had put in place this year, now that we don't really have nearly the kids on quarantine, that I've shifted some of the focus. And we're very lucky to have a gifted master teacher in that role. And I have her beginning to do some work on curriculum projects, and more specifically, a math program investigation at the elementary school level. We have not done a math review in a number of years, and that's something that we had planned on, and we have currently a substantial amount of money set aside in our ESSER funds to be able to fund that as part of our planning over the next several years. So we're shifting her focus from working with kids in quarantine to working on some of these curriculum projects, and in particular with Mrs. Barry retiring in January, this is something that will be a great help to me. So I think, just to make sure the public is aware, we did close our drive-up clinic, but we are offering testing Monday through Friday at the SAU. People can call, they can come in and get tested any day, anyone who needs it, so we have that available. And masks are no longer required by the CDC on school buses. I was very pleased to hear that and communicated that out to people over vacation. The cafeteria at Maple Ave is going back to fully operational tomorrow, so we've had kind of limited numbers of kids. There's no ability to physically distance at Maple Ave in the cafeteria, so we're going back to full operations tomorrow. I wanted to let you know that Mrs. Bizzarro had shared with Mr. Gross and I that there's some early indication that the USDA is at least investigating the plausibility of continuing the free lunch program moving forward. I think there's a lot of pros and cons to that. We'll keep you posted on that. And this is really good news. This is exciting. We are fully staffed for all of our open custodial positions for the first time in, I think, two and a half years.
Plus years.
Two years. So, congratulations, and we're so grateful and appreciative of our wonderful custodians and everything they do to make our buildings a great environment to learn. And I'm even more excited than the custodians for my last piece, which is I'd like to invite Mrs. Milligan up to the microphone. And as the final element of my superintendent's report, I would like to do a little meet and greet with Jessica Milligan, who is our recommendation for the open middle school principal at Mountain View. So Mrs. Milligan, some of you will say, boy, she looks familiar. She does. That's because she was at Maple Ave for a number of years and went to Manchester and was the principal of Southside, and we're so happy to be bringing her name to you this evening for a nomination. So I asked Jess if she could just give a little bit of a highlight of her, kind of her resume, her history, and to let folks get to know her a little bit. Jessica?
Sure. So like Brian said before, I actually was here 7 years ago at Maple Ave. I was there for 6 years as the assistant principal. Prior to that, I moved here from Maine 20 years ago and started my career in Raymond as a teacher and then special ed coordinator. So I'm super excited at the possibility of coming back to Goffstown. Had there been a position open for me back then, I'm not sure I would have left. But I've learned a great deal in Manchester, so I'm very excited at the possibility of coming back and working with the families and the staff. I got to tour Mountain View last week and saw lots of familiar faces, including children that I had in first grade and that will be leaving, but it was nice to see all the faces.
So Jess is available if anyone has any questions, or if the board would like to kind of get in more depth interview type questions, we can do that at the end of the meeting in non-public as well. But consistent with in the past, I wanted to at least have a little bit of a meet and greet with the administrator that we're bringing to you for a recommendation.
Anybody? No? All right.
Thank you, Jess.
Well, thank you.
Why don't you hang around, though?
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Is that everything?
That's everything. Thank you.
All right. All right, so now we're going to move on to old business. These are all second reads. We've already done first reads. We've already done questions. So now tonight is to make motions to pass them through. So I will start with the first policy, which is BDA.
Move to approve BDA.
By Ellen. Do I have a second? By Shane. I will do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. Next one is policy BDE.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Ellen. Do I have a second? By Shane. I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. Next policy is DJC.
Petty cash account.
Yes.
Move to approve.
By Ellen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By
Keep it
Shane.
rolling.
I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion
Heather,
passed. Yes.
how is the 3 to 5 year review going to be tracked?
Well, we go through them every year to see which ones have to come into the 3 to 5 years. So there is somebody keeping track of it.
Someone goes through
Yes.
it anyway, so
Yep.
there's not, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And if I can add to that, Ellen, these specific policies were recommendations from the auditors.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of these financial policies are reviewed by our auditors
Right.
as part of their annual review as well.
Right, I was
Yeah.
just, I didn't realize we had others that required, look it over every 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
and if we had a system for
We do.
that.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
All right, so the next policy is DJC-R, that's a petty cash accounts. As well, we need a
I'll
motion.
move to approve that regulation.
All right, by Ellen, do I have a second? Oh, by Ginny? She beat you, Shane. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. Next one is policy DM, which is cash in school buildings. Do I have a motion for that one?
Move to approve.
By Ellen, do I have a second?
Second.
By Shane? I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. The next one, EBCF, we're going to pass that one because that is just information only, and Brian is going to be doing updates later. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is JIC.
GBB.
Yeah, I don't have GBB here. Okay, yeah,
GBB-R.
GBB-R. So I'll need a motion for that one.
I'll move to approve it, but
Okay. Do I have a second? By Ginny. I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
I'm going to vote no. I
Okay,
understand the rationale.
Yep,
Okay,
that's
but
fine.
I still feel there should be something.
no worries. Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. Next one is policy JIC, student conduct. I'll need a motion for that.
I'll move it.
All right, thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Shane. Do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle? Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. And the let's see, we got
JICI?
JICI, yep, dangerous weapons on school property.
I'll move that.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Ginny? All right. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. And the last one is JICI-R.
I'll move to approve.
All right?
This is
Motion.
weapons expulsion.
Yes. Motion by Ellen, do I have a second? By Shane? And I'll do roll call again. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. So motion passed. Thank you, guys. That was a lot of policies.
Well, I think it does help that we do talk about it between the
We do.
two reads, so that we're not doing it on the night of
That you
the
approve it.
final.
Right, right. Yeah, we
Process.
go through it a few times.
And what was happening with this one?
That one, and later on in the meeting, Brian has updates
Oh,
on
did
the
something else
emergency
happen?
plan.
Okay.
And that was
Emergency
just for information. We're not changing anything.
So we've already okayed this?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's this, what we've been doing.
Okay.
And then Brian's gonna go through it later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the next on the agenda is the calendar.
Okay, so in your packets, all board members should have the draft calendar. A few notable things for this calendar. I should share that we do not have the final Manchester School District calendar yet. We try to align vacation weeks with Manchester because we have students who attend the Manchester School of Technology, and To the best of our knowledge, this is what the vacation weeks for them will be. There was one year that there was a difference, and we had to go back and change it, so at this point, I would kind of just give that as a disclaimer. It's only happened once in the last 10 years, but it has happened in the past. But the first thing I would share is this is a 181 school day calendar. The Goffstown teacher contract allows for 181 student days, and that's exactly what's being brought forth before the board for your consideration. You'll see that we have a teacher workshop day on the 29th of August, and then students would start on the 30th. So Tuesday the 30th, they would go 3 days the week before Labor Day weekend. And then, as I've shared in previous iterations, that when we've talked about the calendar, there are a number of elections next year. Next year is a midterm election, so there will be a primary on the 13th of September, followed by the general election, the second Tuesday in November, and then also we have the local elections the second Tuesday in March. So we have 3 election days next year to contend with. You'll see other notable changes. We have included for the first time in 10 years Columbus Day on the 10th of October as a holiday. And then apart from that, everything else is really pretty straightforward. You're looking at the vacation week for Christmas being a full week plus 1 day, so that students would go a full day on Friday the 23rd and then have all the next week off plus the following Monday. And then, apart from that, it's pretty consistent with a February vacation, an April vacation, and students would get out on this calendar on the 16th of June. So at this point, sir?
No, I just, because of my day job, have to notice that the November election is actually the Tuesday after the first Monday. Happens to be the second Tuesday, but the law is specific.
Thank you, Dan.
Sorry.
I always strive to get a little better with all of those nuances each year. The first Tuesday after the first Monday. I will work on that
The
one.
Tuesday after the first Monday, yes.
Tuesday?
Mrs. Moran will remind me next year.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Just, because it just happened just this week, kids coming in on a Monday, being off on a Tuesday, coming back on a Wednesday. Is that something that can be avoided, so it's not bouncing around the kids?
Only if you want to do a lot of 4-day weekends.
Oh,
So, for example, tomorrow's election, we could have not had school today, but that would have made the vacation 2 days longer and I think hard for families. But teachers plan for that. So teachers today knew that the kids were coming back. It's the first day back from vacation. They know that tomorrow is a non-school day because of the elections. So teachers plan accordingly. So
I'm
it's,
thinking of parents, because it's happening.
I think it would be harder on parents to have more non-school days.
Or move the teacher workshop to Wednesday.
It's an election.
Yeah, but it's
No, it's
election,
an election
so we
day.
have to have no.
Oh,
Right.
the Tuesdays next year are due to the election?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
3 of them.
3 of them.
Three of
Gotcha.
those days. And we use those as teacher workshop days
Yes.
as a
Gotcha.
result of the elections. Were it not for those elections, those wouldn't be non-school days.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Shane, I saw your hand, and then Dan, and then Amanda.
Yeah, I just had a question about the
Ellen.
181 days, Brian. It's just unusual.
It is unusual.
What's the rationale for that? Is that just because the contract allows for it?
So the
or-
contract actually allowed for 182 school days,
Okay.
and some members of this board will remember for 3 years in a row, I recommended a 182-day school year that we never ended up doing. The last round of teacher negotiations, not the contract that citizens will be presented with tomorrow, the previous agreement, we had changed one of those days to an additional professional development day. So we've had this on the books for some time, and right, wrong, or indifferent, your superintendent believes that kids need a longer school day and a longer school year, so I took full advantage of it. In the past, we've looked at this, I think 3 years in a row, we looked at a 182-day school year, so I was taking another shot at it. And Mr. Gross has reviewed the costs associated with an extra day for paraprofessional support staff, so we're very comfortable with all of those pieces. For example, when we have a remote learning day, we don't end up paying for busing, so we were comfortable with the additional day of busing. So from a fiscal perspective, we're very comfortable with this. And really, this is just the ability that I think kids benefit from more time in school.
Great, and thank you for all that information, because my follow-up was going to be, do we know what the cost is as far as actual staff, running the buildings, things like that?
We do.
So, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Shane. Go ahead, Dan.
If I may, I was going to ask Caleb how he felt about coming to school on Monday and getting Tuesday off and then doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
I think some kids do like it because the first day, like today, we come back and we're like, oh, crap, school again. And then after that, it's like, oh, but we have tomorrow off to catch up on everything. So I think it does work for some kids.
Yeah.
I was tutoring one kid during fifth period today, and he was like, oh, dude, I forgot to do my homework. And I was like, you have tomorrow off. And he was like, what? So I think a lot of kids do enjoy it. I think although it may not seem like ideal, I think some kids do appreciate right after the break having a little more time to catch up on the stuff they might not have done over break. Which I agree with that. Breaks for break, then you catch up on school when you get back.
Break, shock, break, normal.
Right.
Right.
My thoughts go to the younger kids who need the consistency,
Yeah.
and the breaking up really messes a lot of them up. So that's where my thoughts were going.
Right. Amanda?
Question about December 23rd. Is that always a full day?
It has been some years, hasn't been other years. Typically, if we are ending school days and starting vacation during the week, I would do a half day before, but because it's a full week, I chose to keep it as a full week.
And because next day is Saturday, not
Correct.
Saturday is Christmas
Correct.
Eve.
If we were starting the vacation on the Friday, I probably would have, it has to do with just really being able to accommodate families that are traveling, people that are, going to be driving to be with people. But that is something I would expect New Boston teachers ask the same question. So, yeah.
They did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They typically do.
Retta?
I have a couple questions, and one is New Boston. Has this already gone through New Boston as well? Do we need to coordinate with them?
New Boston has seen the calendar, so they're familiar. They do not, so I want to be clear, New Boston does not have a 181-day calendar. Their calendar is only 180 days. So there is an additional instructional day in Goffstown that New Boston doesn't have. Okay. But the last New Boston School Board meeting, they had the calendar.
They
so
did, and they were
reviewed
waiting
this.
on Goffstown's actions.
Yeah.
Okay. And to the 181 number, the first sentence after the calendar, it says 180 days for instruction. Should that be 181?
No, because
That's
that's specific. That's specific to the RSA. So
Okay.
you can do your calendar one of two ways. You can do it by days, or you can do it by hours. And we've historically done a days-based calendar, but we have to have a minimum of 180.
Right. And my last question, October 10th, it says it's a holiday. Down below it says teacher workshop and holiday. Should that be TW?
Yes. No, that should be just a straight-up holiday.
Okay.
So good catch. We'll make that change. It is not a teacher workshop day.
Okay, so it's wrong down below.
Correct. So I apologize for that.
Since we had Columbus Day off for years, and now next year we're proposing to put it back on the calendar, is this something that's going to be a normal? Because parents kind of get used to
This would be
what 3-day
something that I would
weekends we
plan to continue this.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're not 1 year off, 1 year on.
Correct. And very similar with Martin Luther King Day.
Yes, I knew that was back
Yeah, we had gone back and
this
forth.
year.
There were years that we didn't have that. So those 2 days, for me, moving forward, you can expect to see those every year.
Okay. All right. So we're not ready to move on this because we're waiting for MST
No,
schedule?
I think you can go and, on the off chance that they have a different week, I would just come back to you with an edit.
Okay.
We have to submit our calendar to the state by April 1st.
Right.
So
Oh,
it would.
okay.
I'm going to move to approve the
Well,
calendar.
wait, hang on 1 second, Ellen, because Dan had his hand up, so hold that
Just-
motion.
It's only a color question, and
Okay.
it's kind of silly.
No, nothing
But-
silly, go ahead.
The first and last day of school are green, but early release days are peach. What do you do when the last day is an early release? I have two calendars. One is green.
That
one
would
is
be just
peach.
peachy green, wouldn't it?
I think so, but
Oh, you're right.
sorry, Mrs. Moore, 'cause we
And-
love the colors, and that was a new added thing, so.
Well,
Yep.
and
So we
I
have
will
to
give
color
the
that
credit for the
peach.
colors. That was a recommendation from Mrs. Lambert in New Boston.
Yeah.
That was something that
A
she
few
had.
years ago.
Yes, and
Excellent,
we
but-
we agreed. I thought that was a great recommendation.
Yeah, would you mind posing the question to her then?
I would pose it to the calendar master to
So
my
the
left.
June 16th needs to go to peach instead of green.
Because there's another green in August 30th.
Yeah, that's the first day of school.
And
That's what green is.
And that's because it's the last.
And it's not an early release.
And the and the last. Oh,
Yes.
I see. So it's
Greens
supposed
there.
to be green.
Well,
But
maybe
it
not.
could
Maybe
be
we can do a
early
triangle. We
release.
can shade it, half green, half peach. What do you think, Mrs.
We got
Moran?
one 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
that was green.
Yep.
The one from tonight is peach.
Right, I see.
This may not be a popular idea, but we can just make it a full day on the last day of school.
No,
And
so we'll leave it green.
eliminate the peach, and then you don't have to worry about the peach.
So why don't we keep it green, but the circles represent the first and last day?
Right.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect. Ginny, go ahead.
That's clever. That's good.
Under
That's good.
December 2nd, there's a December with no date that says early release.
On December?
The teacher workshop day in December?
December,
Yeah.
that's TW.
Underneath it.
Oh, that's where 23 used to be? We could just write that in if you want.
I don't see that on my calendar.
Yeah, I see what he's talking
I
about.
don't see.
Down here.
Yeah.
Oh,
on the bottom.
On the bottom.
Oh.
There's December 2nd, and then there's December, no date.
I think that's supposed to say 23.
Good catch.
No, that just gets, that's gone.
Good
Yeah.
catch, people. This was a test.
So new rule, we're gonna send this to Shane. Shane is gonna be our calendar reviewer extraordinaire.
I would love to review the calendar.
All
He
right,
gets
so,
to see really small characters.
I can't even read it.
so December 23rd is a full day. According
Correct.
to this calendar,
Correct,
because the next day is Saturday,
correct.
Right.
which in the past, if it's a
Weekday,
weekday,
it's
it's a
half
half day.
That's what we've done,
That makes
correct.
sense.
So
But
is
Christmas is actually
everybody,
that Sunday.
Sunday, so.
Saturday
So
is
Saturday
Christmas
is
Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Right.
and Sunday is Christmas,
Right,
yes.
and the day before Christmas Eve, a lot of times, is a travel day.
Correct,
So how many kids are going to be here or
All
not be
day.
here on the 23rd?
Right.
Whether we have a school day or not,
right.
that's the question.
So the question is, do we keep it as a full day or make it a half day?
As a compromise,
Leave it as a,
180 and a half days.
No, it's considered a full day as a half day.
Well, we could,
Right.
There we go.
we could look at it as, we make it a half day because we have the 181st day. We have the extra day, so why not make this a half day?
You get out at 1, well, 1-ish, depending on the school.
Compromise.
So that
And it is
really
considered a
still
full day of
is a
school,
full day of
correct?
school.
Yes.
but
Because,
no
Considered.
counting.
yeah.
I say leave it.
I think at the high school level, kids aren't going to show up regardless if it's a half day or
There you
like.
go.
I agree.
Anybody
One
travels
class
don't
period
show up
is
either,
a
so
huge difference.
All right, so
That's their
the
choices.
consensus is to keep it or make it a half day?
I say keep it.
I don't know, I'm feeling
I'm
like
not
a half
hearing
day.
anything on this end of this table.
I think it all gets tricky with where Christmas actually falls. And, to Dan's point, I think people,
Travel.
New Year's Eve is kind of, not New Year's, Christmas Eve is kind of part of Christmas.
It
So
is,
they'll be
right, traveling on the 23rd.
But
So if we want to change that, we would just need,
So let me ask this question then, as a real, we get to that Friday, the 23rd, not a lot of kids are showing up in the classroom, potentially, if that's the case.
right.
What do the teachers plan on doing? What would you do, Amanda? Would you still have your regular class and the kids, but do another catch-up when they come back? Or you're gonna do something different?
So, it's definitely a day of instruction and learning. It's a little bit, especially as the afternoon goes on, becomes a little bit more challenging to get everyone's
Attention.
attention.
And what happens to the other half of the kids who aren't there that day for instruction? What do you have to do the next time you have them?
I mean, it would be like an extra day of review.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It wouldn't require additional makeup time when they come back.
Okay. Get my point.
And you could, this, I mean, obviously, this is one we can argue either way.
Right.
Agreed.
Yep.
So I just need a consensus, and then if we want to make a motion to pass the
I'll
calendar.
move to approve the calendar.
Is everybody good with the 23rd as a full day? You three look like you're still thinking.
So what I'm thinking is that the half-day, if they get out at 1 o'clock, it's a difference of
depending on-
what, 2 hours?
It's 2 hours earlier than
You know what I
their
mean?
regular
So
time.
I'm fine with keeping a full day. I just don't think it has that much impact as people are traveling. They're
Parents
probably
can
gonna
pull
take that
their
day off
kids out
anyway.
and-
Right,
Right.
you know what I mean? So,
Yep. You two good with
And there's
that?
got to be a last full day at some point.
yeah.
Right.
Let me be the somewhat dissenter. I think it's too close to Christmas. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we've always done half-days right before Christmas.
And even this one, you know, yes, the before Christmas Eve, it's whether, so for me, I don't care what day it is. I really don't care, because if Christmas was on a Friday, and on a
There's-
Wednesday, we give them a half day,
Right, we would.
it's the same thing, just because it's a weekend? Plans aren't gonna change because of that, that's my logic. It's still that, so
Right,
it's
the day
either
before
not a
Christmas
day, because it's the 181st, sorry, Brian, if it didn't fall that way, or we do something different to get that other 181st, because I just don't like wasting time. I remember in school, which was a very long time ago, and I did it anyway. I kept prompting him, I'm here, teach me,
Right.
because that's the geek I was. And then I get 2 days out of it,
So
because I
if-
get to review it the next time.
If we made it a half-day, it would still be 181 days, correct?
Correct.
Right.
So nothing
So we can kind of
changes.
still say we had 181 days, but it's a half day, because it's
Right.
consistent with what we do.
Yes.
I'm in favor of the half day, or no day.
I think I agree, a half day. I think the staff would appreciate that.
Yeah, to get ready for the holidays.
Yes.
Can I just ask
Hang on one second, Janelle. Retta's going
Um,
to talk.
for Dan, so the following year, Christmas will be on a Monday. Would we also have the half-day?
No,
No, because then Saturday would be,
because that would be day 3. The half day would be Saturday.
right,
We'll give them a full day Saturday.
right.
I like the full day Saturday.
Now, don't give them any ideas. Janelle, go ahead.
I'm just echoing Dan's sentiment. I think for myself, at least, I love having my kids home to help out, make cookies and get ready for family. I think it's a very important time, even though it's only a couple hours early. I say if it's not going to affect the calendar, keep that half day. I think it's important to a lot of families and kids, too, because they've checked out, and just trying to get them to put it in for those last couple hours is just, it's hard on the teachers, I think, and it's hard keeping the kids, you know, even contained in the classroom. Kids are just ready to burst on the 23rd. So I think definitely give them a half day. I'm on that side too.
All right, thank you, Janelle.
I'm thinking of the parents. I mean, keep the kids in school. I mean, imagine being a working parent, and I know if I were a working parent, I'd want my kids to be in school and be home on the regular routine.
Okay, I'll make a motion, if I may, to turn the 23rd into a half day, please.
All right, so we have, Dan made a motion for the 23rd to a half. Janelle is seconding. We've had a lot of discussion. Is there any others? I'm going to do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
No.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
No.
Shane, or Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. So motion passed with 2 noes.
Okay, so we'll change that to an early release on the 23rd.
Yeah?
And we will make we're going to eliminate the line, the December one down below. We'll take Shane's recommendation on the circles, and we'll change the color to peaches. Right?
And what about October 10th?
October 10th is a holiday.
October 10th is a holiday and will not be reflected as a teacher workshop day.
So we're
It's
taking
just
off
Columbus
teacher
Day.
workshop day.
And Brian, I just want to be clear that August 30th would remain green.
Right, because that's the first day of school.
It's not an early release.
Right, we're in all day.
However, June 16th will be peach with a circle.
Right.
We will send it to you before we publish it. Is that fair?
Oh, my Lord.
Be my honor to double check. I would love to look it over.
So, nothing else has changed except the 23rd, so are we good to pass this
Yep.
forward?
And I would expect New Boston to follow suit.
So, if everybody's good, I'll need a motion to approve the calendar as amended.
I'll make that motion.
By Dan, do I have a second?
Second.
By Ginny? Any other discussion before I do roll call? All right, seeing none. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. All right, so you'll let New Boston know the.
I certainly will.
When is their next meeting? This week?
Next week?
Next week.
Oh,
Okay.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. All right, so moving on to Emergency Operations Plan Review.
So what we have here for the board's consideration again, this was, I presented this to the board on February 7th. So so this was 4 weeks ago at this point, and COVID has continued to decrease, which is fantastic. So at this point, I would like very much to just have no more COVID anything. However, at this point, we still have recommendations for isolation and quarantine. Those pieces remain in effect. We did email, and Dan, I apologize, I forgot you were going to be here tonight, so I emailed, you got an electronic version of this.
Yep.
Jared and Janelle, you got this from me this afternoon, and other board members have a copy of this in your packet. It's really up to you at this point. I think this reflects what my thinking was 4 weeks ago, and really we were talking about a shift, an ideological shift, really moving from prevention to just surveillance, and really this has just continued to go in a very favorable direction. I would highlight that the masking section, I added this section after your deliberative section based on some input from Mr. Talbot. I thought that was good input, Jared, and I added that section before I presented this to New Boston. The only two circumstances at this point that we would be looking at any masking would be for students who had a household contact or were positive themselves, and this continues to be the guidance from our public health officials. I did make a note in this that up until when I presented this to you at the beginning of February, masks were still required on the school bus. That is no longer the case. We notified people over vacation, so I removed that altogether. So that was removed from Section 5 of the Emergency Operation Plan, and I did put a sentence that if guidance from public health officials change, the superintendent is authorized to make adjustments accordingly. So, for example, if there's any changes in the household exposure or the quarantine isolation stuff, that I could just make those changes without any delay. So, and the only other circumstance, and I think at this point, barring some new, yet to be identified variant of COVID, the only situation where I was recommending masking is if there was clear evidence of school-based uncontrolled transmission. So that was a phrase, and I did define that. I think that was also one of Jared's recommendations. And again, at this point, I think that that's not needed. I don't think we're going to be seeing that. And in the off chance that we deal with this again in the fall, I would think we would come back and kind of start at the beginning. Let's see what the recommendations look like. But I'm ready to have no COVID restrictions of any kind.
Dan, I saw your hand up.
Yep, on page 2, Brian, section Roman 1C, fourth bullet.
Yes.
Is the comment within those parentheses required?
So that, I actually copied that directly from guidance from the state, so that's verbatim from.
Yep, but understand, but is it required? That statement that refers
No.
to, okay.
No, I think that could easily be removed if people were more comfortable removing that, because the household contact piece remains the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I would like it removed. That is whether I vote yes or no on this plan. Because in my mind, for the public who's listening, I'm not trying to be covert, what it talks about is only those who are unvaccinated or not receiving recommended COVID-19 vaccine doses, in which in my mind makes no difference whether you are able to contract the disease or not. So why is it in there?
And again, just to be clear, that entire section is verbatim from the state.
Totally
So
understand.
yeah, I copied
Totally
and
understand.
pasted that,
Yep.
but you could safely remove the parentheses and it wouldn't change.
And it doesn't change the meaning?
Nope, it doesn't change the meaning.
How would you like to proceed with that, Heather?
We can have a motion to remove it.
I would like to
Is
make a
everybody-
motion that we remove the words between the parentheses and the fourth bullet of section Roman 1, letter C.
All right, Jared and Janelle, do you know where he's talking?
Yes, I'm able to keep track.
Okay, all right, so I have a motion from Dan to remove what's in parentheses. Do I have a second? Are you still reading?
Second.
All right, Janelle, that was you?
Yep, that's me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion before I do roll call just on removing what's in the parentheses? All right.
And it doesn't change the meaning
No, the
at all
first part
of the section.
doesn't get
Nope.
changed. All right, so Retta,
Yes.
Ginny,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
Janelle,
Yes.
Ellen? Yes. Dan?
Yes,
And Heather, yes.
Thank
So
you.
that is, motion passed
and we need a motion for the,
for the whole thing.
So
Does
moved.
anybody have questions for Brian before I take a
Understand.
second from Dan's motion? All right, seeing none, so I have a motion from Dan to move forward with this plan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Shane. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen? Yes. Dan?
yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Yes, Retta.
If I may just ask a question, Brian, there's a lot of COVID information on the homepage of the SAU website, and some of it is historical. I think it could be confusing with everything that's out there, if that could be moved off and.
Yeah, or maybe cleaned up somehow. I can speak to Mr. Bourget and see what he thinks. But, you know, really, we tried so hard to put as much information out as we could to be resources and to be transparent with families. But, you know, I think at this point, I'm looking for this to be in my rearview mirror. So let's
So let's just put
move forward.
the most basic
Yeah.
plan on the SAU website.
And to be clear, there is that button that's right there, and there's a menu item, so I think it's pretty evident where to go if you do.
Okay. I'll speak to Mr. Bourget.
Thank you, Retta. Anything else before we move on? All right, so moving on to new business. So in your packets, you have two memos. We're going to do the first one, which is the theater renovation. So we have motions written out. We talked about this at our retreat. So, Scott, do you want to just do an overview?
Yeah,
for
sure. So as I had mentioned to the board previously at your retreat about a use of the capital reserve fund for theater renovations, the theater was not really touched a whole lot in the renovation project about 20 years ago. The seats are over 30 years old. We have numerous seats that are broken, and the parts are hard to come by, and it does need a facelift. So the request here is to have a very small group of individuals who would kind of oversee this project in terms of the design, you know, the planning, design, and more or less the execution of it. It would be I would assume a pretty short-term type committee. When I say that, I gave you a timeline. I'd like for this group to work from April through September to work on designing and planning, coming up with an RFP, and then, you know, the hope is that we would have an RFP bid award by January, so that we could have contractors lined up to do summer work. And that's always the tricky part in any of these types of projects. This theater renovation project has been in the CIP, which is the Capital Improvements Plan, for those who don't know what CIP stands for in the audience. And it's been in there for a long time. The funding for this would come exclusively from the capital reserve fund, so there wouldn't be any tax appropriation dollars. These are monies of which the taxpayers have already voted to put monies in. And what I did was I also put a $25,000 contingency. The reason why I did that is after having discussions with Randy Loring, your facilities director, he made mention of the fact that the current seats are bolted in, so there's like a cement floor, which there's vinyl composition tiling over that, and there's bolts that come out of the cement, and then the seats are attached to that. And there could be issues with when you remove the existing seats, you might have to redo floor repairs. So he felt, a contingency we should put in there. All that being said, I think it's good to get a lot of input from staff here. So that's why the composition of this is relatively small. So it would be a GHS administrator. More than likely, just so you know, Assistant Principal Kim McCann has already volunteered as part of this. The facilities director or a designee, so it would be either Randy or Dawn. And then it would be one of the high school music or theater faculty members. There would be 3 community members, and then if a school board member wanted to be a part of that, we could certainly make room there. So that's really, the gist of it. I don't think that there's not sufficient enough time for this to be this summer, summer of '22. It's just impossible. But with all the things that are going on, we've got a Windows project this summer, hopefully, and this would put us in the queue for next summer. So that was the thought process behind it. I did include in your packets, I believe, the charge for the Facilities Planning Committee, because I figured some people might say, well, don't we have a Facilities Planning Committee? If you look at the charge of that Facilities Planning Committee, it's kind of a lot of it is different. It really takes a look at growth in the community. Would we be looking at constructing any new schools or additions or major renovation type work? That's really not the case here. We know what is kind of needed. It's replacing the seating, the flooring, tile work, paint, and house lights. We kind of know what the project is. So it's just more of a smaller group to kind of execute this.
And the facilities group is be done in April anyway. So.
More than likely, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that was really the gist of that one.
So does anybody have questions for Scott? If not, the motion is in our agenda. Go ahead, Dan.
So I was wondering,
Heather,
Scott,
just because I couldn't hear Scott completely, I want to make sure I'm active listening. And
Okay.
Scott, I think I heard you say that all of this would be items that are listed in CIP and have been for quite some time, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. This project has been in CIP for years.
Yep.
Yeah. Looking at the proposed motion, I know that we're talking about $300,000. How much is currently listed within the fund itself at this point in time?
Over 400, I think it's 420,000 right now.
Wait a minute. We have a paper about.
I know I had that. I can look it up for you, but I'm pretty sure I know it's over 400,000.
Without the.
Okay, so
Correct.
yeah. Long story short, we do not. This is not contingent on how the voters are going to vote tomorrow to fund the program or
that's correct.
Fund the money.
The CRF.
That money's already there.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Go ahead, Dan.
Mr. Talbot asked my questions, thank you.
See, we're
Took
getting
it right
good,
out of your
Dan.
head.
No, it's wonderful to have great minds think
Yes.
alike, and it's not necessarily mine.
So does anyone else have any questions for Scott? If not, somebody can read the motion.
Where is it?
I'll make the motion.
It's on the back side of your agenda. On the top. Go ahead, Shane.
Motion to establish a GHS Theater Renovation Project Committee as presented by school administration with a $300,000 project budget, with said funding to come from the district's Facilities Capital Reserve Fund.
Thank you,
I'll second
Shane.
that.
Second by Ellen. Go ahead, Dan, you have a question?
Further question, Scott, with this, does that then give the authority to this renovation project committee to go forward to RFP spend, but
No.
We still have to
No,
approve.
you have to approve
all
it.
of the-
Yes, they're acting more or less in an advisory capacity. You still would approve all RFPs, you would still approve all the bids.
So what was the purpose of including a $300,000 project budget? Was that just a directive to keep whatever you advise us with under a certain dollar
Yes,
amount?
yes, so I think
Okay.
it takes into consideration Jared's question earlier in the sense that we need to, I think it's important for the board and the administration to give this committee the parameters of spending.
Right,
So
and
you've got,
it's a parameter of spending, not an
Correct.
authority of spending.
correct, parameter.
That was important
Yep.
for
All our committees are.
us to understand, or at least me anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
So I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion before I do roll call? All right, seeing none. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. Thank you, Scott.
Question, Heather?
Yes, go ahead, Ellen.
Just real quick, it says optional, but I would strongly recommend that one board member be on this committee.
Yes.
Okay?
I agree.
Not necessarily be optional, but
Yep.
I think we need a voice on there and an understanding to come back to us to report. And if nobody else wants it, I'll be happy to do it.
I think it would make sense when we have your next meeting, that'll be your reorganization meeting.
There you go.
We'll
Yep.
include that
Absolutely.
as
On the list.
on the list.
Okay.
But I do think it's important that a board member be on it.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Ellen. All right, so the next one, Scott, you want to talk about?
Sure.
that?
The next project that the board discussed at their retreat was, and again, this is not a new concept, so it's a bus turnaround at Mountain View Middle School. So for those, I was not here at the time, but engineering was done on this project in 2017. And it was done to look at traffic mitigation measures at Mountain View, where, so essentially, just, for those in the audience, or for those who might not be familiar with it, the buses, right now, they make a left turn, they go up, they drop the kids off at the school, they go around the building, then they have to make another left-hand turn to go down the driveway. That causes a tremendous, bottleneck as you're trying to get the buses out. What this would do is it would create a turnaround, and I would say that turnaround would be behind the current softball field. There's a fence. We'd have to dig into a little bit of the hillside there, and would also take a little bit of an area where the playground is, but not part of the playground. So it would create like pretty much a bus turnaround, so almost like a cul-de-sac. You're going to create a cul-de-sac, basically. And this way, the buses would all go up the left-hand side, and then they go back. So buses would then make a right turn onto Lauren Lane and be able to get out. And they would never have to fight the traffic going in two directions. So that was the engineering that was done in 2017. At the same time, we looked at another project back then, a road widening project. And that road widening project, we asked Dantech, who was the engineering firm who designed it, to give us pricing on both. The road widening project was looking at about an $800,000 to a $1 million project to widen the entrance road to Mountain View. This bus turnaround project, we're anticipating about $130,000. So it's a must. I think for the administrators and Randy looking at it in particular, we're like, this is a much better first step. Let's see what we can do with a small amount of money to see if it'll have a more calming effect in terms of the traffic and not create the bottleneck. So.
Scott, if I could just add one thing. Part of the reason and the rationale that we did the engineering already is we applied 3 different times for state grants to fund this, and we were unsuccessful. So I think we heard, it took 3 times, but we finally got the message, we're not going to be eligible for funding. I had really hoped that some of the public school infrastructure funding that had been available to support school safety projects, we couldn't get approval for this. So I think this is a good, reasonable, and prudent way to pay for this. And this is something that I think will significantly help the congestion, and it'll help the safety. So we have had circumstances where buses have clipped cars. We've had cars clip the guardrails. And the last thing we want to do for the next soon-to-be highly successful principal of Mountain View Middle School is, not remove this, because this really is something that needs to be done. It'll just, let's keep the buses and the cars away. They don't need to blend. And right now, you've got, they're cutting through, and it's just, it's a disaster.
Crossing each other.
Yeah,
Until you get to back to Lord.
and Mrs. Kohler, right where this spot is, directs traffic every single day.
Yeah.
She's out there directing traffic every day.
Ellen, you had your hand
Yeah,
up.
the 130 is just for the turnaround, the cul-de-sac, I'm gonna call it, okay? We're not including at this point the widening.
No.
Is that, okay. The widening would be for the road that the buses are going in two directions, am I correct?
No, the widening would be when you pull up to Mountain View, you
Yeah.
can go left, like you're gonna
Yep.
go around back to where the athletic fields are, or you go right, like you're gonna loop up to the front of the school. That's currently 2 lanes. What
Right.
we would do, the widening, was to create a 3rd lane.
Where?
On the right side.
On the right side.
It would be a
going up.
little bit of a combination, actually. So it would slice into, there's a retention pond on the left.
Right.
That the drainage coming off the asphalt goes into
Right.
there. It would be to slice into that a little bit and then to add the majority of it to the right. And you can imagine, if you ever go over there and look over the edge, it's a lot of fill.
Yeah.
It's
Tons of fill.
probably a 25,
At least.
foot ravine.
You're talking about wetlands and all that.
And there's some
Yeah.
private property. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not without its challenge.
And why does that need, if the buses aren't coming down that way, why does it need to be
Is
widened?
because cars park there waiting for kids to go, and it backs up.
It backs up all the way,
Yeah.
and then what happens is, so you've got a two-way traffic.
That's one.
And you've got
For cars.
cars stacked up, and then people who want to just go up to the school to either drop something off or pick something up, while people are waiting, they go zipping up what should be the downhill.
And then 2 cars can't pass.
Right.
So somebody's backing up.
And some of us will remember that we had a circumstance that was an emergency management situation where we had to get emergency vehicles up to Mountain View at dismissal time 10, 11 years ago, and it was a disaster. We couldn't get fire trucks up, we couldn't get ambulances up. It was a bad situation. So this would create a potential to have 2 lanes, 1 lane, or keep the 2 lanes and keep a dedicated emergency vehicle lane. So it would give you a little bit of a flexibility that you could flex, have 2 lanes going up in the morning and 1 lane going down, and then you could reverse it in the afternoon. You could flip-flop 2 lanes to 1 lane. But we're not doing that. At this point,
It's a lot of
it's
money.
too expensive. And again, we chased after grant money for that, and we were also unsuccessful. But maybe 4th time will be the charm on that one.
Maybe parents need to just sit online.
Well, they do. They do. But again, you've got the, yeah.
That emergency exit was something I said to you about Maple, too.
Well, here's the.
Can't get in there.
How about if Ellen was tasked with going up to the school to get something that was
Direct
important, and all the cars were already there waiting to pick up kids, but you had to get up there? You can't.
Then it can wait and I'll come back later.
Well, no, this is something, if you didn't get it in by 4 o'clock, it wasn't gonna happen.
My bad not getting it in earlier.
You just got the call.
Right. All right. So, is there
I
any
get
other
it, but
questions for
it
Scott on
happens.
this?
It
Yeah. So there's a motion typed out here as well. If everybody's good with this.
Yeah, so just so the board and the public is aware, whenever you have a construction project related to ESSER, federal grant funding, you have to get what's called a conceptual plan review approved by the Department of Education. So all I'm asking for is for the board's authority to keep things going. Allow me, I've already prepared it, so it's just a matter of submitting it tomorrow. It can take 2 to 4 weeks to get that conceptual plan approval. After that's done, we still have to do a lot of work to get the final approval, but at least it keeps the ball rolling here.
To be done over the summer.
This one probably won't be a summer, but it could be, potentially be a fall project. But, yeah, and that's why, the problem is that these types of construction projects, they're already booked for, for the summer. So, we have a window of opportunity where this might be able to get squeezed in October, November, before the plants close in December.
Asphalt plants.
Asphalt plants close in December.
Anybody have any other questions? So this is just to give approval for Scott
move
to do the
Yep,
conceptual.
it just keeps it
get
moving
the
forward.
process going.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, if you want to read it, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to read it. Motion to authorize the business administrator to submit a non-binding conceptual plan application to the NHDOE for an MBMS school bus turnaround project. This project seeks to use approximately $130,000 in ESSER 2 funds previously accepted by the board.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second? By Shane. Any further discussion before I do roll call? Okay, seeing none. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. All right, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, school staffing.
So we have a few notifications, no action required of the board. One leave of absence for Maple Ave teacher. We have long-term substitute covering that absence, and then we have a few observers, job shadows, and student teachers. I'm very pleased to open arms welcome student teachers back, which we've been doing kind of throughout this year, even though it was obviously a challenging year. And then for your approval, we have Mrs. Kohler's resignation, and we have Mrs. Milligan's nomination. And the board could certainly go into non-public if you so desired, but I would say that the contract recommendation for Mrs. Milligan is well within budget parameters.
Okay. So why don't we do the resignation first? We'll do them separate.
Okay, I move the administration resignation.
All right, motion by Ellen. Do I have a second? By Ginny. And I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Minor question,
Sure.
although it's irrelevant because the majority has already voted. This is effective June 30th?
Yes.
Okay, it didn't actually say it, but we already
Yeah.
did it because we hired her as the
Yeah, and
assistant
I should probably
superintendent.
point out for anyone watching saying, Mrs. Kohler's leaving? No. Mrs. Kohler's coming over to the SAU to be our assistant superintendent.
Right, so
July
I just
1st.
wanted to make sure
July
it's
1st.
not.
July 1st.
tonight.
It's,
Right,
yeah,
it's
it's
not
this,
tonight.
Yeah.
although
Thank you, Dan.
I would rather like that.
But we can't do that.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so Dan is a yes, Heather is a yes. Motion passed. All right, so now need a motion to accept the nomination of Mrs. Milligan.
So moved.
By Ellen?
Is this as of July 1?
As
Yes.
of July 1, yes.
Would it be most
Shane,
appropriate, though,
second.
for us to actually go into non-public and ask a
then do it
couple of
after.
questions of the process and how it went and all of that stuff, rather than, unless you guys already did that at deliberative and I wasn't there?
So we have given updates of the process, and we had
Jared.
two board members on the search committee. Mr. Gross was also on that.
One board member from here, one, just
Was
Jared.
it just Jared? Okay, I'm
Jared,
sorry.
yeah.
So just Mr. Talbot and Mr. Gross was on that, Mrs. Kohler was on that, Mrs. McGrath was on it. So we have given some updates, but we
Okay.
could, it's,
No,
and also,
it's
I
only-
asked Jessica to be here.
I wasn't able to make
Right.
some of those. Would it be appropriate to ask Mr. Talbot what his particular vote was to move this forward? I mean, I don't know if that's a non-public or a public kind of thing to do.
That's a non-public.
Yeah, I think
That
that would
was
be a
non-public.
non-public.
I think Jared could certainly share his impressions of the process in terms of his perceptions and comfort level with the process.
Sure. Jared?
Yeah, and I was going to, but thank you, Ms. Chair, and thank you, Dan, for the question. I am ecstatic that we're going to have Ms. Milligan rejoining the Goffstown community as the representative from the Goffstown School Board and being part of the process of reviewing all the nominations and some of the conversations that we had as a committee. I think our vetting process was done very well. As was stated earlier in this call today, or the meeting today, Ms. Milligan also, we did see where she taught, and she came over to the middle school to observe some of our things, and there were very positive interactions that occurred from those things that were shared. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to working with Jessica, as our middle school teacher going forward, and I'm ecstatic that we're able to welcome back one of our community members.
Thank you, Jared. Are you good, Dan?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, we're still open if you want to go into
Nope,
non-public.
I'm fine.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything in non-public that would go into more detail that would not
Okay.
allow me to not support the nomination.
Perfect.
There's a lot of negatives in that thing, but it's all positive.
Yeah, I get what
know
you're
what you were
saying.
saying.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion before I do roll call? All right, seeing none. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. We are unanimous.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome, Mrs. Miller. All right, so there is no other staffing.
Nope, and no need for non-public.
All right, so but before we adjourn, I just want to remind everyone, especially since last time we were in our retreat and we were not on TV, that Janelle O'Brien has submitted her resignation effective tomorrow. So tonight is Janelle's last night as a school board member. And this week, the SAU has to send out a job opening. So it's the same thing, resumes will get sent to the SAU, instructions will be in the ad. We're thinking resumes need to be in by the 16th of March, that's a week. And March 21st is a school board meeting, but it is reconditioning, I guess, with electing of officers. We don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. So we were thinking of doing just interviews, either the 22nd or the 23rd. So it's Tuesday or Wednesday at 6. So it would just be interviews, and then we would go into non-public. So
For a potential new board member.
for
you're talking.
potential new board members that we have to appoint. Now Janelle has 1 year left, so it'd be somebody appointing for her last year.
Either way, it would be only
Only
until
until the
the
next-
next
Exactly.
meeting, so. Correct.
Right.
So what are the dates you're
So-
looking at again?
The 22nd or 23rd,
Okay.
at 6.
And you'll let us know which one you choose.
Which
Oh,
one, we need to know
The next
which
group
one.
knows, okay.
Which, does either of those days work for you? Is any better, the 23rd, 22nd?
Either one.
All right.
Tuesday or Wednesday, any preference?
Not necessarily, but I'm up for reelection, so I don't know if I'd be part of that or not,
Right.
so.
So why don't we put it for the 23rd at 6?
Okay.
For
And if-
temporary, but if you
anything
only get
changes.
a couple of applications,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you would try to do it during a regular meeting rather than,
Well, we thought the 21st might be a little.
We could try.
We can try, we
It
can
would-
see.
We can try.
Yeah,
Well,
we
and then
can play
people
it by-
complain about how long the meeting goes when we do
Right.
that, so,
Right,
I mean.
and we
Okay.
won't,
I think it's
because our
ridiculous.
next board meeting isn't until the 21st, so if,
Right.
and we have to put it in the paper when we're gonna interview, so.
And where is it?
okay.
It'll be here,
Here,
like
okay.
we've done before.
Yep.
So
Okay.
why don't we say 23rd at 6?
Which is a
for interviews?
Wednesday. Do you have
Wednesday.
any?
No, we
No
have New
board
Boston the
meeting.
previous week,
Okay.
so
That works.
we're clear.
That
6
works well.
o'clock that Wednesday.
Jared, does that work for you?
Yeah, works for me.
Okay.
Wait a minute, actually, what day is that? I'm not looking at my
Wednesday.
calendar.
That's a
Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 23rd.
Yeah, that works.
At 6?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Denise, you'll get that out this week? Okay. All right, and thank you, Janelle, for serving the last 8 years. We appreciate all your hard work.
Definitely.
And we'll miss you, Janelle.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey,
I'll
hey.
miss you guys too, and thank you to the community for electing me for 3 terms, and I feel very sad that I can't finish up my last term, but I need to focus on my health, and I want somebody in there that can give their all, because this position is very important, especially nowadays, and thank you to all of you for teaching me more in 8 years than I think I've learned my whole life, and local politics, and just being great thinkers and really asking wonderful questions and being very engaged and putting all your heart into our community. And it's really been an honor to sit on the board with all of you.
Thank you, Janelle.
Here, here.
Appreciate that. All right, Scott, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I have other
Okay.
business.
Oh, you do? Okay, well, that was my other business, so now I'm done with my other business.
Yeah, so I don't want to prolong this meeting too much,
Yep.
but when it has to do with money and saving us money as taxpayers, I thought I'd share. So I often report to you about bills that are before us which take money away or cause us to have increased cost. There is a House bill that is currently out there. It's called House Bill 1417. I'll repeat that, House Bill 1417. And what 1417 deals with is contributions to the employee, to the retirement system. And many of you who have been on the board for a long time will recall that at one time, the state of New Hampshire contributed 35% of the employer's retirement costs. Okay? That then got cut and cut and cut to this present day where it's zero. Now, if we had the previous 35% contribution, Goffstown taxpayers would save a little over $1.5 million. $1.5 million. So that's what was downshifted to the local
Per year.
taxpayer. Per year. And that's only the school district. That does not include police
Town,
and fire in the
fire.
town. All right? So with this bill, and that's, again, that's House Bill 1417, okay? 1417, if you weren't listening. What this would do is it would restore a modest 7.5%. So we're not going to 35. It would be 7.5%. And if that were to occur, the school side savings would be $292,000. So we would save almost $300,000 on the school side. And on the town side, it would be over $100,000 per year. So that's quite a bit of money. And, you know, when we talk about being able to do things and different costs going up, I mean, here's something that historically, you know, the state, you know, did pay for some of those things. And this is a modest, again, a modest contribution, but it would have a big impact on local taxpayers. So I would ask the board members to individually contact your state reps. Those watching in the audience, if you are in favor of this particular House bill, then I would, you know, perhaps let them know. If you're not in favor, let them know as well. But this is an important one that it passed. It did not pass in committee, but it did pass on the full floor, which is kind of unusual. So it got bipartisan support when it hit the floor, and then they sent it back to finance. So this is an opportunity. I don't know when they're going to be taking another vote. It could be in 2 weeks, could be in a month, but this is a bill I think that board members in the community should pay particular attention to, because if this passes, the local taxpayer would save a considerable amount of money. Again, that was House Bill 1417.
One more time?
1417, yeah.
Go ahead, Ellen.
1417.
1417.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Is this something that our school board could take a vote in, I'm going to suggest, in support of, and as a board, notify each of our reps that we ask them to support this? Would that be appropriate on our part, as a board?
If I can answer
Yeah,
that
go
question,
ahead,
I think
Dan.
it might be appropriate only after we actually looked at the legislation, because House roll call was inexpedient to legislate 173 to 172, so one vote to say kill it, that's what it really means.
Right.
They reconsidered by 9 votes, then it tabled it, failed by 9 votes, ought to pass 182 to 169 on the, after the reconsideration. So it's pretty close to a 50-50 who's voting on it. So I would really want to take a peek at it before I could even
Well, the other question
consider
is
something like
that
that. But yes,
strictly
we
on
could do
party
that.
lines?
No.
And you also
wasn't.
want to take a look at how is the revenue being raised? So if it's not coming from local property taxes, how then is that money being raised?
Yeah. Is
So
it
I think
from-
that would also be a consideration for the board.
Okay, that would be my consideration as an individual. How do we get that information?
You'd read the bill.
Yeah, it's in the bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be House Bill 1417. Should you choose to read that?
Go ahead.
Gotcha.
Okay.
This is just a follow-up to what Scott is sharing, and you should all be getting reminders or updates from the New Hampshire School Board Association of all sorts of House bills that are coming up. And
Right.
interestingly, there's a lot involved with the school or school board, so, it's worth looking
Hundreds
at
of
that.
bills.
Yeah, they're in our
Hundreds and
school
hundreds.
emails
Yeah.
Hundreds of
that we
bills.
get stuff.
And also the updates on workshops. There's a lot of great workshops that are coming up. There's a couple on the right to know laws, so it's an opportunity for school board members to become more
You talk about from
informed
the
about
SBA?
that.
From
What's
the
that?
School Board Association, you talking about?
Yeah.
'Cause I haven't
Yeah.
seen that in a long time.
Should be on your
Should
school
always send
email.
Yeah.
It's on your SAU email.
Maybe went into my junk mail again.
Oh, yeah, you'll get, because we all get them.
I just try to keep the board abreast of the ones that have fiscal impact, and this one, it's rare that one has a positive fiscal impact. This one potentially does. So, again, I think board members should definitely read House Bill 1417. Yeah.
Thank
And
you,
anybody in the
Sarah.
community, maybe read it,
Right.
yeah.
Anybody have any questions on 1417? No? All right, so is there any other business? Anyone else have any other? All right, so
there?
we can
Move to
adjourn.
adjourn?
Yes, we have no non-public.
I'll second.
All right, so Ellen made a motion to adjourn, Shane second. Do roll call, Retta.
Yes.
Ginny. Yes. Shane.
Yes.
Jared.
Yes.
Janelle.
Thank you for keeping my last meeting short, guys.
No, you're welcome. Now, what's your vote? Is it yes?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Janelle. Ellen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. We are adjourned.